Hey, how are you doing, everybody? Just want to say hi to Furman, who has been so regular that he asked me the other day if he had missed one. And Furman, you had not missed one. I'll read you a little question that came in from the community this week, and then we will discuss it. Says, my husband and I recently went to Aruba at the beach. Women wear very skimpy bathing suits. A lot of them are wearing thongs. And so their backside is completely naked and the front is barely covered. Tops were small, exposing most of their breasts. I was very uncomfortable and told my husband I did not want to go back. He wasn't happy, and his response was, now I can't go to the beach. What is your advice? I don't feel like looking at these women all day long. She continues, our beaches at home don't have those kind of suits. I'm not opposed to a two-piece. I wore them when I was young, but I wanted to be covered, not completely exposed. She says, although this might be coming to a beach near me, this was just too much for me. All right. Hello and welcome to Ask a Christian. My name is Amy. This YouTube channel is about the Bible, the church, the Christian faith, what it looks like to follow Jesus. And if you would like me to answer any of your Christian life questions, you can hit me up. It's askachristianfriend@gmail.com. So I will call this person Lindsay. And Lindsay, thank you so much for writing in. I want to talk a little bit about this because, first of all, I just sympathize. I sympathize and I empathize. I have been in a similar situation, and I think anybody who has been in a intimate relationship with somebody has always, been mindful of what the other person is looking at. So I'm with you. I was thinking about you while I read this and thinking about some stuff that I've dealt with as well. Hey, Leather Up Studios, how are you? All right, so let's get into some of the ideas I had about tackling this question. At first look, I do want to say, I think on some level, you're right. If you are, bothered by a situation, it doesn't really matter what the situation is. A couple has got to work through those things. Even if it's nonsense, even if it's silly, we have to work through those things. And things that threaten our intimacy, our sexuality, are particularly tough to work through. So, like on some level, just the fact that you're feeling this is fine and okay and understandable. So I wanted to put that out there because I'm about to disagree with what I think might be normal Christian opinion. So, Lindsay, let's talk about some of the normal and maybe not as normal implications here. Okay, so number one, clothing isn't the problem. It doesn't matter how much or how little somebody's wearing. Uh, the question that you're asking goes beyond that. God made people naked. We learn about that in Genesis. And it was only after that sin was introduced and the climate became harsh that we needed clothing for protection. So I think that not clothing in a hot environment is perfectly normal and fine, kind of on a clothing only level. Unfortunately, that's not the level where the concerns come in, but most of what I believe you're reacting to is a cultural norm. It's totally shocking to visit other countries or, even different pockets here in the US and come across people of different clothing norms. Um, Cultures are more or less clothed. It sounds like where you were is fairly close to nude at the beach. And you get a sense here, like if you want to take it back to some historical context, you get a sense of why some of the early, British colonists thought people were savages. It offended their senses too to see people less clothed. They're used to wearing yards and yards of cloth or fabric, and indigenous people often didn't wear that much fabric, and so they were indecent in people's eyes. But it's really not the fabric or the lack of fabric that's the issue here. The issue here is the sexualization of the human body. And that wasn't an issue, in Genesis. That wasn't an issue even maybe early on, but It has become more and more of an issue. The sexualization, monetization of the human body in the Western world has heightened our awareness of the body as temptation to be indulged in or avoided. And that's sad. It's too bad, but you're right. It is a reality. Still, there are cultures who wear few textiles or no textiles that aren't as sexualized as the Western world. So these are just things to think about. Uh, I'm not saying that everything's right or wrong. I'm just kind of taking you through my thought process. So, um, something that I think is really important to look at here is what God stands for. By the way, I'll get to some of the specifics in your note in a little bit, but we believe that God is a God of freedom. He doesn't do a lot of censorship of humanity, and I believe that we should follow suit. So it may seem that people are dressed inappropriately or dressed offensively, but it is absolutely possible that this is just a non issue in their culture, that their lack of clothing um, is not something that is as sexualized as we have made it. Or maybe it is an issue in their culture, but they're not of the same faith we are, or, for whatever reason, God has not chosen to tackle that in their society, in their culture, in their family just yet. So, the whole point here is that the lack of clothing alone is not really the problem. If human hearts were pure, if we were other centered, if we were dressed, in skimpy clothing or no clothing, but not, given come hither looks or, just looking to love and serve people, it wouldn't be an issue. So here's the next part. This is my part 2 response. This is a time to look deep and see if this is an issue that's going on between your ears or your husband's ears or both. And this requires a lot of conversation. I hope you guys have the kind of relationship where you can have open and honest discussion. But being the loving and protective wife that you are, of course, you're concerned of the level of exposure that your husband can be around without just like dreaming of other women, without indulging in lust or fantasizing about other women. Now, you fear that you're setting someone up for sexual struggle. And what I've noticed in a couple of my past relationships, my current relationship, is that I have been so um, influenced by some Christian writers or people who are worried about purity that I haven't even thought to check with my significant other to see if that's his struggle, to see if that's where he is. And I haven't let him be the good guy in that situation. So I'm wondering if that is your concern and your background as well, and maybe not even that big a deal. In your note to me, you did not mention that he seemed to be staring or that he was otherwise preoccupied with the small suits or the gals at the beach. And I promise you that if if you make it a big deal, then it will be more on his mind as well. I'm not saying it's not a big deal. I'm just saying in your note to me, you didn't say, I saw my husband staring or it was awkward. You just said that you didn't want to be around it. So, um, men are barraged by sexual imagery every day. And um, maybe maybe the amount of fabric has very little to do with it in this situation. If he's struggling with sexual temptation, a fully clothed woman could do the trick. A little black dress could do the trick. Same for you. Is a man in a budgie smuggler on the beach the thing, or is it a well dressed man in a 3-piece suit? I mean, if you want to apply some of these same principles to what might tempt you, then maybe it'd be a little bit easier to talk to your husband about this, realizing it might not be the deal for him. So, anyway, you worrying over his degree of distraction. will not keep him safe, will not keep your marriage safe. You restricting the beach because of tiny suits might actually increase his desire or the chance that he feels deprived of the beach or the tiny suits. So here's the point on this set of questions. This situation gives you the chance to practice talking with and trusting your husband. Make sure he knows he's not going to get in trouble for being honest. Like this is a big thing in relationships. Um, he's got to feel like he can tell you if it's a struggle or not. He has to feel like he is trusted to be a leader in this situation. And so tell him it's hard for you to be there with so many beautiful bodies and that you want to be released from this worry. Tell him that, you know, that you're struggling with it, and tell him that you trust him and that you want to have fun there at the beach, and you want to know how you can support him if he does start to have temptation. Assume he does not. And then just say, you know, if you do find yourself struggling over a certain someone, or you know, you're just drawn to looking at these beautiful bodies, which is totally understandable, will you let me know and let's make another plan and go a different place? I think that level of letting him really take that responsibility on himself instead of you trying to boss him is going to raise him up in your eyes and raise up his level of responsibility for that situation in his own eyes. Um, so again, back to Aruba specifically. I don't think it has that much to do with Aruba. I think you can go pretty much anywhere in the world and have the same struggle. So you're totally right to feel uncomfortable and ban the place if you have to, like if you really have to. But I would use those cards so sparingly. Um, I think there are other places, like I said, that you would run into similar issues, and life could end up being really restrictive and not super fun if every time somebody or, you know, a group of people who are scantily clad cross your path, if you had to jet, that'd be too bad. So instead of worrying about Aruba and naked women, build up the kind of relationship where your husband knows that you desire him and you respect him, and you just assume that he's committed to fidelity even in thought, and let him know that you're putting it back on his very capable shoulders. You trust him to stay or leave as his conscience dictates. And make sure he never feels unsafe telling you this, that he feels like he's got a partner in you, a friend in you. It's hard for us to hear sometimes that men are sexually tempted by people who are not us. But the truth is, I think very few of the godly men that I know, even if that thought crossed their mind, they would not hold on to it. They'd be doing their best to refocus on their partner, on the woman that they love. And I think that the more freedom you can create in this situation, the more your husband will value your insight and your leadership, and the more likely you are to be able to pull those hard stop cards if and when you have to. So, last thought, if your husband has problems being faithful and likes to be tempted and is secretly going to the beach to see beautiful bodies, which I don't think is very fun for men to be able to see that and not do anything about it. You've got bigger problems than who's at Aruba wearing whatever they're wearing. And in that case, I don't have any advice or any help except to get a hold of a Christian counselor if and when you're both willing. So, hey, that's it for the Q&A for today. Hopefully it was fun, a little bit spicy. And yeah, biblical principles of freedom and trust and you know, just being okay with the natural body and knowing some of it's cultural. I think that will get you a lot further in a open, happy discussion and a happy relationship than shutting things down and saying like, no, we can never go to Aruba again. All right. Once again, I'm Amy with Ask a Christian. This was fun. Thank you so much for sending in your questions. If you have a question, please send it to askachristianfriend@gmail.com. And if you watched all the way to the end of this, would you leave me an emoji, a little heart? Leave me a little heart if you saw this. I'd love to hear your comments. What would you do if your significant other and yourself found yourself in a dicey, spicy situation? All right. I'll see you guys next week where we will do our final episode of Conversations Christians Suck at, talking about lust and the Christian obsession with purity. Does it help us? Does it hurt us? We will talk to Pastor Jonathan Henderson next week about all that goodness. So see you next Monday, a little bit later. See you next Monday around 6 p.m. Thanks for tuning in, and bye for now.